So welcome everyone to the County Council meeting. Our first item of business before we start is the election of the warden and deputy warden. The process is that I will ask for nominations for the warden and then for the deputy warden. Should there be two people nominated for one position, the election is done by secret ballot. And if there is a tie, the names go into a hat and one is drawn by an individual. So we will start out right now. If I could just ask for nominations for warden. Councillor Smith.
I would like to nominate Jerry Litchie.
And is there a seconder for that? Are there any other nominations for warden? Okay, seeing none, could I just have a motion to close nominations? Councillor Vandewalle and a seconder? Councillor Greenwood Spears? Councillor Lichty, do you accept the nomination of warden?
Yes, I do.
Okay, and then I'm just looking for nominations for deputy warden. Councillor Vandewalle?
I nominate Bill Saunders.
Is there a seconder for that? I'll just take Councillor Gowdy. Are there any other nominations for deputy warden? Seeing none, could I just get a mover to close nominations? Councillor Smith and a seconder, Councillor Leonard. So if I could just ask Councillor Saunders to come up here and sign the declaration of office. Oh, sorry. Councillor Saunders, do you accept that nomination?
I do, thank you.
Declaration.
I truly, faithfully, and impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner. I will disclose any peculiar interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III. And I make this solemn promise and declaration conscientiously believing it to be true and knowing that it's the same force and effect as if it made under oath. Good. Thank you.
And Warden-elect Lichty, can I just get you to come and read your declaration of office?
Starting here.
Yes.
I, Jerry Lichty, have been elected to the office of warden in the municipality of the corporation of the county of Frontenac. Do solemnly promise and declare that I will truly, faithfully, impartially exercise this office to the best of my knowledge and ability. I have not received and will not receive any payment or reward or promise thereof for the exercise of this office in a biased, corrupt, or in any other improper manner. I will disclose any pecuniary interest, direct or indirect, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. I will be faithful and bear the true allegiance to His Majesty King Charles III, or the reigning sovereign for the time being, and I make this solemn promise and declaration consciously, believing it to be true and knowing that it is of the same force and effect as if made under oath.
So Warden Lichty, I will turn the meeting over to you.
Just let me grab my stuff and
As the past warden, I want to move over there because it should not be the females against the males. We need to mix this up. We're okay with that, ladies? Okay.
It's not the females against the males.
If it is, we'll do it from both sides.
So if I could just point out that we do organize it by townships, so we would also need to move Councillor Gowdy and Councillor Fowler to the other side.
We need to mix it up.
So my first duty as the new warden is to sort out who's sitting where. We begin this gathering by acknowledging and celebrating these traditional lands as a gathering place of the first peoples and their ancestors who were entrusted to care for Mother Earth since time immemorial. We do so respecting both the land and the Indigenous people who continue to walk with us through this world. Today, the county is committed to working with Indigenous peoples and all residents to pursue a united path of reconciliation. So we have no closed session. We have no addendum to worry about. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof? Councillor Gowdy?
Thank you, Warden. On information reports, clause A, corporate services, transportation report, it's my place of employment and I wrote the report.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Adoption of minutes?
Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Greenwood Spears, resolved that the minutes of the regular council meeting held October 16th, 2024 be adopted.
Any comments? In favor? Carried.
Moved by Councillor Gowdy, seconded by Deputy Warden Saunders, resolved that the minutes of the Committee of the Whole budget meetings held October 29th and 30th, 2024 be adopted.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. So we have a delegation from the Frontenac ATV Club. Who's ever presenting? Jim Knapp, sorry. Floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, congratulations. I'm Jim Knapp with the Frontenac ATV Club. We're a chapter of the OFATV and we're a not-for-profit organization. Our mission is to build and maintain positive relationships between all users of the KMP Trail as well as the broader community. Now, you've read through, so I'm just going to briefly skip over it if you have any questions. Our contributions include both financial support and in-kind service hours for tree repairs, trail repairs, tree removals, storm cleanup, culvert maintenance, ditching, and regular patrols by OFATV certified trail wardens, and anything else that we ever get called on to help with throughout the county. We also provide restroom comfort stations at 2 locations on the trail. The costs are all listed in there. And that's for all users of the trail. We've previously installed trash and recycling receptacles at Bell Rock Trailhead and Godfrey. We keep those maintained. We've purchased and installed 2 bicycle repair stations at a cost of around $8,000 to the club. In 2023, we provided $12,000 towards replacement of the Elbow Creek Bridge. In 24, we've provided $5,000 towards the county's dust suppression efforts and a further commitment of $5,000 for trail development at Mississippi Station. We carry $15 million in liability insurance at all times. We have an OFATV certified trail warden program, and we ride sometimes with the OPP SAVE team. Our trail wardens they're a presence on the trail. They're the eyes and the ears for everybody else. For if we see something like a washout that needs to be fixed right away, we'll get the word to the proper people. We're there to help educate everybody who uses the trail. For example, certain sections of the trail, who actually owns certain sections of the trail, because nobody seems to know. We assist injured, stranded, and lost trail users, hikers, bikers. Our trail wardens, when we hold organized rides, and I think a couple here can attest that the rides that we have, even with large numbers of machines, are very well organized. And our wardens all help with that. So I want to make a proposal to amend our memorandum of understanding. And part of the proposal, the Frontenac Committee will commit a minimum annual contribution of $10,000 to the county. That will allow us to, for amending the memorandum of understanding for our 25 season, that will allow us to require motorized trail users to have permits or membership in a recognized trail organization on the KMP, from the Verona Trailhead to Clarendon Station, with a further contribution of $5,000 to assist with dust suppression. We'll continue to supply and maintain comfort stations at Bell Rock Trailhead and Fish Creek Road for all users of the trail. Ongoing year-round funding for garbage and recycling receptacles. And inevitably, our club would continue to grow. So we're going to propose a further contribution of $32.50 for every permit sold over the 300 permit mark each year. Altogether, these commitments represent a total financial contribution of at least $21,160, an in-kind contribution of at least $14,160, resulting in a minimum contribution of over $35,320 of value provided each year to the KMP Trail in the County of Frontenac. We believe the future of utilizing a trail in the outdoors is directly related to how clubs and its members use it today. Our guidelines promote safe and responsible riding on trails and protect our environment at the same time. Purchasing a trail permit will give the rider membership in the Frontenac ATV Club and all of the benefits our association with the OFATV will most importantly allow us to continue our valuable work throughout the County of Frontenac. And if anybody has any questions.
Councillor Vanderwall.
I guess, one thing I mean, the proposal looks great. Will there be, opportunities to purchase day or 2-day passes instead of the whole year?
Yes,
And that'll be simple to do?
it's very simple. That exists now. All you have to do is tell us you want a day permit. If you want to go on the ride we're having on Saturday, we'll sell you a day permit.
Okay, so the other part I like about being in partners with the ATV club that do drive the trail a lot, I think it probably controls some of the, I don't want to say reckless driving. I'm not
Yep.
pointing the finger at everybody, but I mean, if there's more of the ATV club on the trail,
Exactly,
it does, I would think, calm the.
exactly.
Sure.
We started, when I took over, we had 2 wardens. We now have 12 and we're planning on doing more over the course of the winter. So, and they're really dedicated, they're committed. They'll go out in shifts. And again, it's not to police it. It's just to have a presence on the trail.
Councillor Fowler.
I have 2 questions, and thank you for your presentation. Appreciate that. The permits that you provide are the same with all the other clubs under the Ontario Federation of ATVs?
Yes,
And does that give people from the other clubs the right to use the trail any trails that you have under your watch?
Under OFA TV,
Yeah.
I can't speak for all of OFA TV. Because there are some sections of trails throughout the province that a club will lease. So I think they would have the right to determine what you need to ride that section of trail. As far as we're concerned, if this is approved and someone rides past us with an EOTA permit, for example, they're paying towards using a trail somewhere. That's all we care about.
I got one other question, if I may. On your permit, is it strictly for ATV usage or is it for other usage on the trail?
Permit strictly to ATV.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Councillor Greenwood Spears?
Okay, thank you for your presentation. I have a few questions, a follow-up on what Councillor Vanderwall asked about for the day passes. What share do we get for any day passes? I assume, and maybe I'm wrong, but these others that would come from Ottawa or KW and that would need to buy a day pass, or if they're already a member of a club, we would get no monies for that. Can you
If-
clarify that piece? And then I have follow-up questions.
If they already have an OFA TV permit, then they don't have to buy a day permit. or anything like that. OFA TV, it's got on all the OFA TV trails. So over the 300 permit mark, which is what we're
Mhm.
proposing, if it's an annual permit, it's 32, whatever the figure was. If it's a day permit and we're over the 300 permit mark, we'd prorate whatever the day permit, 3-day permit, we'd prorate it to so that yes, the county would get a portion of that.
Okay, the AMP funds that, have you leveled any fines at
No.
this point in time?
No.
So that's essentially a zero, and the wardens, you said, don't police or enforce this.
Correct.
So where do we get the fines from?
So what we do, and the same as with the other clubs, we're the presence on the trail. If we see people on the trail, we'll say, hey, you know what, you shouldn't be doing that. Don't do it. If we see it several times, then we need to talk to somebody by law enforcement. We'll take pictures of license plates. We'll take all the facts, give that to the powers that be, and that let them handle it. Let them do what they want. We were riding with OPP, Save Team, earlier. Within 10 minutes, they issued a fine for no helmets. Within 10 minutes of that, there was a truck coming down the trail. Of course, the OPP stopped him and went to talk to him. He took off and drove, must have been 5 kilometers at a high rate of speed in reverse with the 2 OPP officers chasing him. And of course, we're behind them. And he backed up on the Ball Road. The OPP went up. And just as we were coming out of the trail, he took off and he rammed one of our machines in the door. He wrote the machine off. They never did catch him. He got far enough down. There's a spot there where you can double back and get back on the trail farther north. About a week later, they found that truck abandoned on the KMP in Renfrew. So there is a need for a presence on the trail. And as the OPP tell me, they don't have the manpower to do what they need to do. So if there is a presence, that's a deterrent to a lot of stuff going on. If they see that there's nobody on the trails at all, that's when they want to move their trucks, their stolen goods, everything right down the trail. So if they see a presence, although we can't do much about it, we're eyes and ears. So.
Okay, and another one. You made a mention that nobody seems to own know who owns the trail. So are we undersigned on the trail to identify what is actually the trail and that is owned by County of Frontenac or?
Well, the reason I say that is we were on a ride yesterday with Richard and we got to a section of trail. I didn't realize that it wasn't owned by the county. It was owned by the ministry. And a lot of the general public don't know that. I spoke to a woman last night at 10 o'clock who was wanting to know if she needed a permit to get somewhere. She doesn't, but she didn't know. And she'd been told different things from different places that sell permits. So she was confused. She didn't know who owned what trail, you know, stuff like that. So
So we are undersigned in that if we have a problem.
Council-
And
Counselor, can,
I'm
well, hang on, can we give Counselor Gowdy? She had a question. Counselor Vanderwall does, then we'll come back to you for your other questions. How's that work? Counselor
Sure.
Gowdy?
Thank you, Warden. Thank you, Jim. Your presentation was fabulous, and I'm so glad that you came forward with the idea of the permits. Because I do believe that it's a multi-use trail and we do need a permit system for use, and it needs to, like, user pay type system would be positive. I also believe that not just ATVs are not just causing the damage, but other ones need to pay as well. So I believe that snowmobiles and, you know, horseback riders
Mhm.
should also be included in the use. So again, I'm very thankful for your presentation. And my question was about the warden giving out tickets, but you've answered that question by saying you're just going to provide the information and then bylaw will give a ticket. Because I wouldn't want to put somebody out there who
No.
wasn't by law that could get harassed or
Right.
treated unfairly when they're not only trying to help.
Okay.
But again, my comments were just to thank for the presentation.
thank you.
Counselor Vanderwall?
Well, one is that, I guess, if the county is in partnership with these organizations, county is still in full control, obviously, and managing it. I know it'll be a collaboration working together, but we would still have the full control, I assume. I don't think I need Richard to answer, but I would think that would happen. And I do have a trouble with the word motorized because I know you're talking ATV club, but it says required motorized trail users. And I can support it if that also includes e-bikes and dirt bikes. Is that a motorized vehicle? Like, I don't know what the parameters of this of. I know you're representing ATV, but the language says motorized vehicle. And if it's a motorized vehicle, I think they should pay.
Well, I agree with you. I'm only speaking on behalf of our ATV club. I believe that motorized is motorized. You call an apple an apple. Okay, but that's not for me to speak to, but I do agree with you.
Counselor Greenwood Spears? Thank you for waiting.
Okay, to build on the piece about motorized and that, and it goes back to what you indicated, the OPP within 10 minutes and then within 10 minutes again had
Mhm.
major illegal infractions and certainly dangerous
Yeah.
with somebody reversing and outrunning the OPP. Are we as Frontenac County going to have a bylaw enforcement officer actually out there to, because the OPP has made it clear that they don't have the manpower to lay the charges and monitor this? Because somewhere along the line, there's a responsibility as Frontenac County as the owner of this trail. And moving forward with this, we recognize, or we should recognize, that this will never be a world-class trail, this section. It's not something that you can market around the world to come bring your ATV and go racing on it. It's not going to ever be the Appalachian Trail or the Cape Breton Trail or Bruce Trail even.
It's a pretty good one.
But it's not going to be what you can market as a green trail, which is what it was originally set up at. But at the very least, and I've raised this issue before, when it's great that the club makes sure that there's $15 million liability for the club, and theoretically, all the ATV owners have their own insurance. But if and when there's an accident, that the county will be named for sure. And so I just want to make sure we have at least a specific rider on this trail to recognize our liability, especially if we don't have adequate monitoring of it and enforcement of the speed limits.
We're kind of getting on here. We have it comes up later. Okay, so Counselor Leonard, or whatever, and then Counselor Fowler. And then I have a comment, and then we'll. Oh, sorry, I apologize. You do get an answer, but I do object to your questions about, or comments about not being a world-class trail. Right. Okay. It's coming back up as a bylaw approval later, so we can ask those questions, and Richard's here to answer them at that point in time. Counselor Leonard?
Well, thank you. And thank you, Jim, for the good representation from the ATV club. I've got to agree with Counselor Vanderwall and Nikki Counselor Nikki over here. We do have a great trail.
Yep.
And as far as I'm concerned, I am a large trail user.
Yep.
As far as I'm concerned, our trail is one of the best ones
Yep.
in our whole region around here. I've been on a lot of them.
Yep.
And we do need to go to a one permit system. And I would fully support that. Thank you.
Counselor Fowler?
Yes, I just have a comment regarding wardens and enforcement on the trail. The warden are taking pictures and observing things. They see an infraction happen. They can record it in their notes. They can go to the OPP. The OPP can investigate and lay charges if need be. That's where the eyes and ears come in. Do you agree with that?
Well, more so than that included. But our eyes and ears also come into dangers on the trail. Our guys go out with the snap of a finger and cut up trees that have fallen on the trail and stuff like that. That's a very big part of our eyes and ears. So as far as enforcement goes, it's a very small part. Okay, just the presence on the trail. We can see machines coming off in the distance and they're going really fast. As soon as they see us, they slow down. We don't have to say anything to them. So just our presence on the trail has an effect on it.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I'd like to say thank you for the presentation. It was excellent. And thank you for the good work that you do and the donations that you make and so on. I've got a couple questions and then we'll wrap it up. The first is a comment. You did pull in North Frontenac. It's part of the presentation. We operate differently. We have, through the Crown Land Stewardship Program, we have a series of Crown Land campsites and Crown Land roads. For you to use those, you have to have a campsite permit, which we offer online. And if you don't want to use that, want to drive the roads or use your ATV, you have to have a road permit. So that's an online offering. We do have agreement with the Ottawa Valley ATV Club. They give us X number of dollars and we turn that money back into maintenance on the trail. And anybody displaying the Ottawa Valley ATV Club sticker on their machine, if they get stopped by our staff or by the OPP, they're free to go because that's the in kind. We also have a similar arrangement with the Bytown Motorcycle Club, which is, these are both year by year. The ATVs are one thing. The motorcycles are always a bit of a question, but so far it's worked out well for us. Once again, the township controls what's being done on the trails, what's not being done on the trails, and we have a written agreement with the club. So we can do that here if we want to. And secondly, a couple months ago, we decided we weren't going to have any user fees, but this amounts to a user fee to buy a annual pass through the club, according to the internet, through this club is $150. I'm not against it. I'm just saying it's not necessarily free and the county doesn't get any of that money. So anyway, just things for us to talk about later. So thank you very much for your presentation. We appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Okay. No, we're done with the item. We have no proclamations and move into the committee of the whole.
Moved by Counselor Leonard, seconded by Counselor Fowler, that council adjourn and meet as committee of the whole council with the deputy warden in the chair.
Comments? We have to do this. Comments in favor? No? It's a motion, right? Yeah. In favor? Carried.
I had two days. What was
I got mine.
there? No, I must have already given it to you. Sorry.
Wouldn't be the first time. Sitting next to you is always crap sheets.
Am I good to start? Well, good morning, everyone. Let me take a second and say, I really appreciate the support of council, and it's an honor and privilege to sit in this chair, and I hope to honor the chair in the same way the previous warden and deputy warden have done. So thank you again. We will begin with briefings, and CEO Farrell has a briefing with his CEO monthly report. Kevin?
So good morning, council, and first, big congratulations to Warden Lichty and Deputy Warden Saunders. As always, I'll take you through the CAO update for November 2024. I will touch on the main points and happy to answer any questions. So to highlight a few items from my November schedule, on November 4th, Christy Elderhurst, our GIS supervisor, and I met with Central Frontenac staff to discuss progress on NG 911 initiatives. This included island naming and water access addressing. We're making great progress with this work and working closely with all of our townships. The Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus CIOs have been meeting in preparation for the Roma conference in January. Yesterday, as you heard, I had the privilege to join Richard, along with members of our various ATV clubs and North Frontenac representatives, to see and discuss the KMP Trail. So we should be very proud of this trail. I do think it's world class that we have here in Frontenac County, and the economic development impact it will have on our region. We'll see that for many years to come. So I do thank council for their continued support along the way. Finally, a huge thank you to our now former warden, Francis Smith, on a very successful and productive term. I've appreciated working closely with you, with the warden's reception tomorrow in Charlotte Lake. I hope to see everyone there as well. I won't go into details, but these are the AMO communications are here for your reference. But I will highlight that the deadline to submit delegation requests for Roma is November 27th. In terms of a human resources update, so in terms of recruitment, we've had 279 postings as of November 14th. Our new superintendent of operations was posted, and the successful candidate was Lindsay Esford. Labor relations is ongoing. We continue to have preparations for our various union groups. In terms of miscellaneous, we continue to work through our Verico scheduling software, hoping to have that ready for the new year. Our Star Garden succession management module has been tested and ready to go live. We continue to do 360 feedbacks on our various directors and managers. And we hosted an investigation workshop, which included various municipalities and 24 attendees. We have some updated stats for the third quarter for the Howe Island Ferry. Overall, small vehicles are down and large vehicles are up. This contributes to the number of vehicles left behind that you see here. And overall, passengers and voyages are actually down. For Fairmount Home, many thanks to residents and staff who dressed up to celebrate Halloween at Fairmount Home, which included an afternoon music performance for residents. I don't have the photo evidence, but there was also an appearance by Chief Gowdy dressed as the Pope himself. So maybe we can circulate that photo later. With the support of officer cadets from the Royal Military College of Canada, Fairmount veterans were honored with a Remembrance Day wreath ceremony. A big congratulations to Peyton Hunt and Fairmount Home, who were recognized in the October issue of The Spoke for their hard work and dedication that went into the development and implementation of IPAC best practices. That's infection prevention and control. So big kudos to Peyton Hunt and the team. A few updates from Frontenac Paramedics. Again, a huge congratulations to Lindsay Esford on becoming our newest Superintendent of Operations. The Leads Learning Series is well underway. Thank you to Chief Gowdy for leading that, and there's been multiple cohorts that are receiving that training. To date, Frontenac Paramedic Leadership has visited with 45 paramedics and discussed various topics, including the ORH report and future investments, the new MPDS dispatch system, the CTS site, bargaining, peer support, and more. Kudos go out to paramedic Dave Doran, who has run a boot drive to collect old boots that are still in good condition to be used again. Dave has collected 185 pairs of boots that have been donated locally, so that's a big success there. As of November 4th, Kingston General Hospital, their emergency department, has started with an offload nurse 24 hours a day, and this will be in place until the end of March 2025 at least. Finally, the Ontario Association of Paramedic Chiefs recently held their fall symposium, which included a women in paramedicine leadership workshop. This was attended by our very own Shauna Dunn and Lindsay Esford, as well as a logistics workshop attended by Chris McBain and Andy Dawson. Digital engagements for the month of October show a solid increase of 15% from the same period a year ago. The most visited pages were related to careers, using the Howe Island and Wolf Island ferries, and accessing the KMP Trail. Our top social media posts were Frontenac Paramedics harm reduction messages that were in advance of Queen's homecoming, and another regarding a greenhouse activity at Fairmount Home. Planning applications and inquiries have been busier in October and November. The start of November, and to date, approximately 40% of applications are consents that are being processed under delegated authority. As many of you know, the Economic Development Team welcomed 66 participants throughout the day for the 2024 business retreat at the RKY camp in Parham. That took place on November 5th. There was lots of great networking and connections with businesses and partners, so it was a successful event. There were 27 business nominations over 5 award categories, and Mayor, now Warden Lichty, presented the awards to all the winners seen here on this slide. Work is now substantially complete on the 8 kilometers of KMP Trail project between Clarendon Station and the Mississippi River. We can now celebrate this milestone of bringing the project into the township of North Frontenac. Local partners who provided some funding include the Frontenac ATV Club, who are here today, the Ottawa Valley ATV Club, the Snow Road Snowmobile Club, Charlotte Lake Business Group, the Kick and Push Brewery, Clarendon Station Accommodation, and even one anonymous donor. Improvements have been made to ensure the safety and accessibility at various gate locations along the trail. This includes widening the gate openings to accommodate a range of uses. Signs with trail information are being produced and will be mounted on the gates later this year. Finally, today is the 25th anniversary of GIS Day, and our amazing GIS team has been very busy. They have relaunched the latest version of the Frontenac Maps website that I encourage everyone to check out, and they're actually representing Frontenac County today. They're engaging with students through a display and career panel at Queen's University. So big kudos to our GIS team. And that's it for my update. And thank you, Warden and Council, and I'll take any questions at this time.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin, any questions for Mr. Farrell? Councilor Greenwood-Spears?
Thank you. Great report. I'm just a little confused on the offload nurse that's 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And I believe our funding initially was for 1 nurse and then it became 2 nurses, but doing 24 hours a day, it takes 2 nurses and you'd only cover off 3 days. So could you clarify that? And then I have a follow-up.
I'm gonna turn it over to Chief Gowdy to provide that clarification.
So the staffing is provided by KGH, so they have increased their staff complement to cover it 24 hours a day, whether that's 2 nurses. I think it was meant to be like 2 nurses a day in a 24-hour period, and however they staff that to account for vacations and sick times, they'd obviously have some additional folks there.
So it covers off 365 days, including our weekends. We have a reduction in ambulances.
Sorry, could you just repeat that?
So it covers off 365 days. Specifically, I'm thinking on the weekend when there's a reduction in number of ambulances and yet an increase backlog with oftentimes students, and that at the Emerge department, so it gets very busy on the weekends there, and we're still getting coverage for the nursing staff, you're telling me?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And one other thing in that when you're going over the human resources report, and I get very concerned when I see so many postings that we've had gone through, what is our target for next year for turnovers and that? Because we know what they are right now, but what is our future target for reduction in our turnover rate because of the expenses that are associated with that?
Barb, do you want to?
I don't believe that, we can pinpoint a number. We have a retention strategy, a recruitment and retention strategy. And we continue to work as well with the union at Fairmount Home. And we last negotiations, we inserted an article on respectful workplace. So we will continue to work with staff in conflict resolution and making sure that staff are feeling welcome and valued in their role. And as a result, hopefully reducing turnover. We do compete with several local hospitals and other long-term care homes where transportation goes. So sometimes we lose them because they think they can get here and then it doesn't work out for them because they don't have transportation.
Other questions for Mr. Farrell? Seeing none, do we need a motion to accept his report? Thank you, Mr. Farrell. The next item on the agenda is unfinished business, and seeing none. Next item is consent reports from the Chief Administrative Officer. Seeing none, we'll now move into
So moving into Committee of Management of Fairmount Home, that's moved by Councillor Vanderwall, seconded by Warden Lichty, that Committee of the Whole Council adjourn and meet as Committee of Management of Fairmount Home with the Deputy Warden in the chair.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. All all in favor? That was going to be part of my introductory comments, so bear with me. Okay, so the agenda item is Committee of Management of Fairmount Homes, and Madam Clerk, are you going to read this?
Yes, so that is moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears and seconded by Councillor Smith. Resolved that Council pass a bylaw authorizing the Warden and Clerk to execute an agreement with Sodexo Canada for the management of dietary and support services at Fairmount Home for a 6-year term with an option to renew for up to 3 years.
We're going to ask for questions. Any questions regarding the report? Seeing none, all those in favor? Passed.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Gowdy, that Committee of Management of Fairmount Home adjourn and revert back to Committee of the Whole Council.
All those in favor? Passed. Thank you. We are now on to item number, recommended reports from the Chief Administrative Officer. Again, Madam Clerk.
So regarding report 2024-119 for the requirement of all motorized off-road trail users to hold a membership with an authorized partner organization, that is moved by Councillor Fowler and seconded by Councillor Leonard. that staff be directed to amend bylaw 2022-003 as follows. Section 7, regulations regarding motorized vehicle use on the KMP Trail be amended to add a new section 7.3 as follows. No person shall permit any motorized vehicle noted in section 5I and II to enter upon or utilize the trail unless that person is registered with an authorized partner organization as noted in Schedule 2. That Section 7 be renumbered accordingly, that a new Schedule 2 authorized partner organizations be added to include the Frontenac ATV Club, the LNA Ridge Runners Snowmobile Club, and the Snow Road Snowmobile Club. And further, that the warden and clerk be authorized to complete a revised memorandum of understanding with the Frontenac ATV Club for non-exclusive use of the KMP Trail that outlines the following. 1, the requirement for all motorized trail users to be licensed and insured, that the 2025 minimum contribution commitment of $15,000 towards trail maintenance, and the requirement of all motorized off-road recreational vehicles using the KMP Trail to have proof of membership, such as a permit or pass with the Frontenac ATV Club or with another authorized partner organization. And further, that staff present a memorandum of understanding with the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance for non-exclusive use of the KMP Trail that outlines the following. Again, the requirement for all motorized trail users to be licensed and insured, the 2025 minimum contribution commitment of $15,000 towards trail maintenance, and the requirement for all motorized off-road recreational vehicles using the KMP Trail to have proof of membership such as a permit or pass with the EOTA or another authorized partner organization. And further, that the KMP Trail Management Plan be updated to reflect the changes outlined in this report.
Questions, comments? Counselor Smith.
Just one comment I'd have, and that is our concern about motorized vehicles. In every good bylaw is definitions. And I haven't reviewed the bylaw specifically, but I think we need to put in our definition of motorized in order to make it clear that it does include those bikes that are motorized, whatever else is motorized. Just a comment.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
So the definition under the bylaw for a motorized vehicle means a vehicle used for transportation relying upon a motor for operation, including vehicles described as off-road vehicles, snowmobiles, motorized snow vehicles, motorcycles, and dirt bikes, but does not include an electric mobility aid.
We don't specifically say motorized bicycle because they're fairly new. Mind you, they're not fairly new, but there's lots of them now, which there wasn't before.
So it doesn't limit it to those ones that I have mentioned. It just says it relies upon a motor for operation.
Counselor Vanderwall.
So on that terminology, though, do we need to amend it to make sure it's specific? Because I think they're gonna argue that it's not a motor. I'm starting it with my legs and then I drove 20 kilometers on a motor. And I just want to be clear. I think that electric bikes get away from all basically motor vehicle requirements. They don't need a license, they don't need insurance, they don't need any of these things. And I think it's only fair that they should also have to have a pass. But that's just my opinion on it. And so I would like to see if we could clarify that language a bit.
Counselor Leonard.
I totally agree with Mr. Vanderwall, because a motor is a motor regardless of what it's on. And if we're gonna start and let this motorized vehicle get a pass, then you're gonna have to do it to all. And so as far as I'm concerned, anything with a motor on it should be involved into this. Thank you.
Other questions? Counselor Gowdy.
Thank you, Deputy Warden. I have a few questions. Richard, does the snowmobile clubs donate any type of financial contribution to the trail?
Snowmobile clubs have made contributions to capital work that's done on bridges primarily, but other projects where we've reached out and looked for capital support. The way snowmobiles are governed differently than ATVs. They are governed under provincial legislation, and they have rules and organizations that are guided by provincial legislation, and including how their passes are collected and how the funds are distributed through the provincial organization. So the clubs at the local level don't collect funds for use or investing in local trails in the same way that the ATV clubs do, because they're more independent and they're not guided by that legislation or that organization. So we have to apply to the provincial organization to receive those funds to do this work. The advantage of working with the snowmobile clubs in the winter is they do own their own grooming equipment, and they do provide their own monitoring. We do not contribute to any of that winter maintenance that takes place when they're out there as the county. They assume all of those costs themselves.
Okay, thank you. So my next question is, our weather has changed. So we have an exclusive use that as of December the 1st till April the 1st, only snowmobiles can go on the trail, not any other motorized vehicle. I don't agree with that due to the way the weather is changing, and our trail is promoted as economic development. So if, say, at the end of or after Boxing Day, people want to go for a ride because it's green and it's not white at all, we're selling them a pass they're not allowed to use for those 4 months. So I would like to see the agreement change that it's only you're not to be on the trail if the groomer is out. If the groomer is not out, then it's the motorized vehicle should be allowed to be on the trail. Because if you want to go for a ride and go up to Sharbert Lake and have lunch, or go on up to Wheelers and have pancakes, you should be able to use the trail if there's not snow on it, and it's going to bring economic development into our area for it.
So we can revisit those agreements. That's not necessarily part of what we're proposing here, because we've already approved in the past our agreements with the snowmobile clubs. However, it can be brought through committee and council for consideration going forward, to take a look at those the changing nature of winter and the need for flexibility when it comes to working with the OFSC.
Okay, and my final one is, I just think that if we're going to have an agreement with EOTA as well, that all the agreements should be signed at the same time, so that you know that they're going to expire or need to be renewed at the same time, instead of doing one here, one there, all over the place. Those are just my comment.
Councilor Green Spears.
Going back to the motorized vehicle aspect, and that I believe under the OPP legislation that there are speed limits around 32 kilometers versus 55 kilometers, et cetera, for what you need for licensing and things of that nature. And excuse me, the comparison of e-bike, and that I can't see them doing 55 on an e-bike, but I can see them do it on a dirt bike and beyond. So I think we need to get more serious and specific as to what the speed limits are around even the ATVs as well, and that would be very helpful. When in the background report on the trail maintenance, it speaks to 82,000 plus in expenses for our regular road maintenance. And while I do appreciate there's potential of 21,000 hard cash and 14,000 in kind coming from the ATV club, we've also just heard that we don't get anything except specific capital asks from the snowmobile club. So this goes back to recognizing the major subsidy that we're providing for motorized vehicles on a trail. And when Councillor Gowdy raised the point of the motorized vehicles being allowed basically up to year round if we don't have snow, what we've heard before is the amount of damage and rutting that can get done by the ATVs, especially if it's soft. And that whether it's in the shoulder season of winter or spring. And that's so being cognizant of the expenses around here, I've always asked, what are the real economic benefits, and that we need to get better at the measurement of it so we can see that this investment by the taxpayer is actually being translated out into more than just fun for some people, but actual economic development in the area. And it shouldn't be that hard.
Sorry, Warden Licky.
Thank you. We'll get used to this eventually, you and I. I've got several comments. First comment addresses something that Judy Greenwood Spears, or Councilor Greenwood Spears noted, and the Frontenac ATV Club noted about which property is Crown land. Everything north of 509, after the first 100 meters, is still owned by the Mississippi Valley Conservation Authority. We have an offer to buy that for $1 once it's legally free and clear. And as I understand, the riding group learned the hard way. There's one property at the far end that said, we don't have an agreement, so the land is ours and you're not going any farther. That is up to the MVCA and that property owner to figure out, but that explains why everything north of 509 essentially is Crown land. I agree with Councillor Gowdy that both agreements should be on the table at the same time, because I don't want to have any conflict between these are two major ATV clubs, and I'd like to see them work together on it. As far as belonging to a certain club as opposed to getting a pass from the county, I think it's expensive. I really do. It's $150 for a season, according to the Frontenac ATV website. And we would get roughly $30 or $32.50 out of that, but you have to pay $150 to use the trail. Why not have our own, just like North Frontenac does, have our own fee? Let's say it's $30 or $40 or $50 for the year, and we get a contribution from both associations or both clubs, and say, we'll allow your trail users or your members to use the trail free and clear if you give us X amount of dollars, and we'll work with you to upgrade the trail as we go forward. So I still think this isn't quite there. And then there's the whole issue of, it finally gets to North Frontenac, and the first thing someone wants to do is charge our users. You know, we've been paying for 9 years helping to build this trail. So there is that. And you could have waited a year, Richard, sorry, but that's just personal. Anyway, so that's what I have to say about this.
I'll continue around the table. Councillor Fowler.
Yes, I just like to point out the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance permit is a multi-use permit. It categories all the different modes of transportation from hiking right up to ATVs. Just want to point that out so they're aware of it. And also the agreement we have in North Frontenac is with the Eastern Ontario Trails Alliance on our Crown roads as well. Warden Litsky didn't include that when he was speaking the last time. I think that we should know that they're have the same agreement with the 3 different organizations. So to be EOTA, Lifetime Riders, and the Ottawa Valley ATV Club. And that system seems to work, and I agree with Warden Licky that it'd probably be one of the better ways to go regarding getting funding for the trail.
Thank you for clarification. Councillor Vanderwall.
I would like to make an amendment to it that it includes, but to Warden Lichty's point, if we heard anything through budget, we don't have time to supposedly do what we're doing now. And I would think adding the trail permitting passes and following up on all of those things would just be more work for our staff. Whether we agree on the funding model or not, that's different. But I think when they're saying all the in-kind work that they're actually helping us with, there has to be a value to that. But I'll do the amendment if you want to wait till we're all done speaking on it or whatever.
Advice from the clerk?
So I can read the amendment now, but the minute we put the amendment on the floor, that's up for discussion, not the main motion.
I think I prefer to finish the discussion first and then bring the amendment forward. So other questions? Oh, sorry, Councillor Smith.
Just a comment to the economic spin-off from this trail. If you talk to anybody close to the trail, they will tell you that their visitors is huge because of trail users. Bob Basra's Petro-Canada, on a Sunday when there's snow, the parking lot is full of cars and trailers where people have unloaded their sleds to use the trail. And they all buy coffee, they buy food in the store. So there is a big economic spin-off from that trail. We don't need to measure it, but our businesses measure it. So I don't agree, Judy, that there isn't an economic spin-off, because there sure is. And you just have to be on the ground to see it.
Councilor Greenwood Spears?
Okay, I will acknowledge that there's an economic impact for existing businesses. I'm looking at it from a development perspective, as in new businesses forming along the trail. And that not just supporting the existing businesses, which is very valid in that, but economic development is bringing on more businesses. And as for the comment about the in-kind, and that it's already been classified in the report of what the in-kind contribution is, was about $14,000, $15,000 that combines to get to that $35,000 mark, 21,000 in cash and 14,000 in kind. But the expenses far exceed that. So I would be of the inclination that that maybe we should defer this, because I actually support Warden Lichty's position in that we should be collecting a fee, and that to help offset the expenses of this trail rather than just on the backs of the taxpayer. So if that takes more staff time, why rush this through and actually make sure that we're collecting it as well, because it's insufficient for the amount that's being put in, and this is lowballing what our maintenance costs may well become when we have extensive use and increased use of ATVs and dirt bikes and everything else that may land on this trail, including the monitoring of this potentially by bylaw.
Richie, would you be prepared to respond to some of those questions or comments?
That would be a great, a few things to note when it comes to, pardon me. Been holding my tongue for so long, it stopped working. So one of the challenges with the is that under provincial legislation, we can't offer permits to snowmobiles. The only permitting available for snowmobiling is through the OFSC. So we either have snowmobiles as part of the OFSC. Thank you. As part of the larger Ontario Federation of Snowmobile Network, or we don't have snowmobiles at all. It is different for summer motorized use, and to date we have not had an agreement that guaranteed any contributions towards our trail maintenance. However, we have had contributions given to us from the Frontenac ATV Club over the past 7 years, willingly, because they're in support of the trail. In terms of from a management perspective, this is an economic development project. And part of why we've had the additional expenses going forward in terms of trail maintenance for allowing motorized impact is the fact that they contribute greatly and our local community uses the trail to contribute greatly to the pocketbooks of our small businesses located along the trail. The other piece is if we don't have motorized uses on the trail, we don't have the same expenses. And when it comes to whether an e-bike, it has the same impact on the trail as a motorcycle or ATV, it simply does not. It does not create the same type of maintenance concerns around dust or around require annual grading or anything like that. So from a management perspective, whether it has a motor or not, whether you consider an e-bike to be motorized, I mean, I think that's a longer conversation for us to figure out outside of this, but it is not, it's not the same when we're looking at the dollars and cents of it, in terms of management from my perspective. On principle, you have a point, and we have to think about that. Yeah, we can try to, we could have our agreements all happen to launch at the same time for, in April 2025. That sort of thing I'm happy to pursue. And I'm sorry that I brought this year and not in another year, but it was a deferred motion from 2 years ago that did need to be addressed at some point, and so it is here for us to address and consider. So those are some of my responses to the comments and questions that have been made from my perspective as the person managing the trail.
Thank you, Richard. I will go on record as my first achievement is having you bite your tongue for the longest period of time. We'll start with actually Councillor Vanderwall.
I guess what you were saying there, Richard, is you would like to have a more in-depth look or conversation about e-bikes before we just make an amendment and add it. Would you bring that back and we could add it? And secondly, to the point of economic development, which I'm always gray on, South Frontenac spent over $1 million last year on recreational use facilities, and we get $21,000 back in rental fees. So if you're looking at this thing to make money in cost recovery, it'll never happen in your lifetime nor mine. It just doesn't work that way. It's a benefit to a community, and that's the same thing that we have to look at it in South Frontenac.
Warden Licky.
I almost forgot what I was going to say here. I would like to see this particular motion deferred, is sent back to staff to put together or to look at the definitions that are included in the bylaws with the idea of making sure that they're completely inclusive. I would also like them to look at the possibility of us issuing the permits, because that kind of fee is just too much. North Frontenac is built on tourism. So mom and pop and the two kids, bring them up for a week or 2 weeks. They bring their two bikes with them. And the first thing they have to pay is something like $200 or $300 to use the trail. That's not economic development. That's just us getting maintenance. And a lot of that money goes to the club to cover off what they're already giving us. So it's not a good way to look at it. So there is a realistic opportunity for us to look at how we would actually do this ourselves, and then say to the club, if you give us this, we'll sign this agreement, and you give us this much, and all your, same thing as before, and all your users and members can use this trail free of charge. And then we can work on the wardens and so on, which I do think is a good idea as well.
Second.
Let me just confer with the clerk for a second.
Sorry, so this is an amendment to defer, and we just need a seconder for that.
My apologies, Madam Clerk. Councillor Smith.
Whatever my name is, eh? I think we're looking at a gift here and we're putting it off. We've got a club who's proposing to give us money to help maintain this trail that they've already been doing on their own. So now they're going to continue doing that, plus they're going to give us money. We don't have people on staff that can deal with permits. If you want permit system, it can come down the road, but it can't come right now because there's not the staff to do that. So I think the bylaw itself probably can be tweaked, but I think the agreement with the ATV club, we would be very silly not to accept the offer that's before us. It's $32,000, and their in-kind of $14,000, I think, is underestimated. I think their in-kind work is much greater than that. But I am not in support of deferral.
Councillor Leonard.
I'm not in support of the deferral neither, because the 14,000.
Excuse me for a second, Councillor. I'm being advised that we need a seconder for the motion to defer.
I actually was the first one to mention it, so I was moving it as a motion, and that it sounds like Counselor Lichty
Sorry.
is seconded.
Either way,
Either way.
it's on the floor.
So before we do 10 minutes of conversation on it, can we call for the vote whether we want to defer or not? Because I think we've talked around it a fair bit.
Wait for advice from the clerk.
So I believe a motion to defer, the only discussion on a motion to defer is time and place. So, and I believe the motion to defer is to defer it back to staff to investigate the report and to report to council the possibility of the county issuing its own permits.
As well as including the EOTA in the agreement. And if we can really make it worthwhile, what about the fees? Fees are way too high. Way too high. Even if we did it ourselves and had to have a cost recovery for staff, $150, of which we're getting effectively about 30 or 40 to 50 bucks. A user, $100 goes back into their coffers, even with that money coming towards us.
Thank you, Warden. I believe the clerk is going to read the
So it's now the motion be deferred and staff investigate and report to council the possibility of the county issuing permits as well as including agreements with the EOTA and the use and the cost of user fees.
Can I ask for a recorded vote?
You can, should there be discussion first? You requested a recorded vote. Ask the clerk to provide a recorded vote.
Councillor Fowler, how do you vote? Councillor Gowdy? Councillor Greenwood Spears?
Defer.
Councillor Leonard? Councillor Warden Lichty? Deputy Warden Saunders?
Defer.
Councillor Smith? Councillor Vanderwall?
No.
So that is carried on a vote of 5-3.
Can I ask a question? Then if it's going to defer and they're going to bring back all that information, they're also going to bring back this other organization that wants to join it. We're going to have it all done by April, which was supposedly the start time. And then could it clarify the definition of motorized vehicle and all of those things at one time?
I believe that's a rhetorical question, or are you asking for a specific answer?
Hopefully, we would have all of this information when it comes back then so that we don't have to go through this again.
Yes, if, I'm not sure I could have the information about whether that we would be feasible to run our own permit system along with these other agreements all put together by April. In fact, I'm fairly certain I can't put a single agreement together between the EOTA and the EOFA TV clubs. So I already know I won't be back with that. So.
Last
Warden-
question, last comment.
Warden Lichty?
Why wouldn't you just have two separate agreements on the table at the same time that they're basically identical? I mean, that agreement they're offering is not that complex. So you have one for this group and one for this group, and they're both on the table and they cover off the trail. And like, so let's say they both give us $15,000. Where does that money get spent on the trail? Does it all get spent at the south end? Does it get spent at the north end? So what we're opening up here is a whole can of worms if we're not careful how we're going to do it. And to have, at least we should give the EOTA the opportunity to join. And if they don't want to, okay, that's up to them. But we've offered the olive branch and said, let's try. And that's what I think we're all about.
The motion did include us offering the agreement under the same terms to the OTA.
Warden, I believe the CEO has a comment.
No, I was just going to repeat what Richard just said. So the actual original motion did offer the exact same terms to the ATV club as well as the EOTA. So we're trying to provide that common ground for both parties.
So Madam Clerk, the motion is deferred. Or sorry,
Yes, that's correct. It has been deferred back to staff.
Thank you all. I think this is called baptism under fire. Next agenda item is corporate services. Madam Clerk.
So regarding the Howe Islander ferry fees and fare schedule, that's moved by Councillor Vanderwall, seconded by Warden Lichty. Resolved that a bylaw be introduced later in the meeting to adopt the 2025 Frontenac Howe Islander ferry fees and fares schedule.
Comments, discussion? Councillor Greenwood Spears?
Is there an anticipation that there will be any sort of reserve built up? Because there used to be a reserve for Howe Island, and my understanding is that there isn't at this point in time.
Alex, thank you.
Through you, Deputy Warden. So the structure for the fees is basically to cover off operations for 2025. There's no added money built in to build up a reserve in there. It's just to cover off the operations of both the Frontenac Howe Islander and the Township Howe Islander.
Thank you. Seeing no further questions, all those in favor? Passed. Thank you.
Next is moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Greenwood Spears. Be it resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac accepts the resignation of Mr. Kurt Halliday from the Frontenac Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee and thanks him for his 9 years of dedicated service to the County of Frontenac. And further, that policy A09-ADM-001, citizen appointments to committees, procedures for vacancy, public notice and advertisement of vacancies be waived. And further, that council appoint Mr. David Yerxa to the Frontenac Joint Accessibility Advisory Committee as the representative for the Township of Central Frontenac, whose term expires November 15th, 2026.
Comments? Councillor Greenwood Spears.
I'm just wondering why we're waiving the usual process.
The usual process would be that you reach out to any applicants that were received as well as publicly advertise. We have had in the past difficulty receiving applications for this specific committee simply because of the nature of the health of those who are on it. Mr. Yerxa was on the committee previously. He's very excited to come back. And so we're just recommending that we not have to go through the advertising process of putting it on social media for a month and then coming back to council in January, February.
Other questions? All those in favor? Passed.
So this is the draft budget revisions. That's moved by Councillor Gowdy, seconded by Councillor Smith. Resolved that the Council of the County of Frontenac receive the Corporate Services 2025 Draft Budget Revision Report, and further that Council amend the budget to reflect the adjustments outlined in the report. And finally, that Council of the County of Frontenac pass a bylaw later in the meeting approving the 2025 budget.
Comments? Mr. Manuel.
Well, I don't know if it's now or later on when you're going to approve the budget. It's not specific to these changes. I just had one question I wanted to ask before the budget was passed. So did you want me to wait to when the actual budget is ready to?
I believe this is the budget, so the bylaw is on the floor during the reading of the bylaws. There is a bylaw there to pass the budget based on the calculations that were noted in the report.
Okay. My only question is, well, I guess ATV got deferred now, but with all the contributions of human and financial resources toward the trail should reduce county staff time. Could the economic development officer be a 2-year contract to see the benefit and impact that it would have? That's all I'm asking. And I don't know who wants to answer it or if I have to do anything different.
Perhaps I can refer that to the CEO for a comment.
I'm gonna turn it over to Joe first.
Through you, Deputy Warden, that is an option for sure. But getting back to what I said to County Council at the last meeting, this position as the current Community Development Officer position is all about relationship building, being out on the field and to Counselor Smith's point, we've been talking to a lot of businesses about the trail and setting up along the trail. We're getting a lot of inquiries. So yes, that is an option, Counselor Vanderwall. We would prefer to not have that because we want to get that person in here. And again, it won't start until 2026 and get them on the ground and get themselves well known. And if the current environment of hiring municipal staff, there's a lot of competition out there. That is a risk that we would lose that person within, before the 2-year contract's up, but it is an option.
The only good thing is I'm suggesting 2 years. I mean, that's not a 6-month contract you're looking for somebody to fill. So 2 years is fairly significant to build relationships, but that's all I'm asking. If that was an option or not, or if not, once you hire that person, it's there all the time, that cost.
Counselor Greenwood Spears?
Okay, just a footnote on that particular aspect for economic development. Last week I was at a binational tourism conference held in Kingston where the little town again, Nockway, had 6 or 7 staff members there, recognizing the economic development of tourism and how vital it is for them. And in comparison, this county does not have that same level of sophistication to understand that by doing this piece and not having done it for the past couple of years, we're actually losing out in that, and we really need to do that investment. But going back to the budget and that, when we had our discussions and that, I had asked for a recorded vote and I was told, no, we would be doing that at this meeting here and that. And my question is, how much of a percentage impact is it for that additional paramedic position? I believe it was 1.53%. It seemed significant at the time. And when we get around to the budget, I do want it as a recorded vote.
CEO?
Sorry, you're referring to the superintendent position, I believe.
The superintendent position was pulled out of it, but there's an additional paramedic 12-hour shift piece in that was remaining in it. And I was told that it would be discussed and decided on at this point in time, and I'd like it recorded.
So I'll let Alex correct me on the numbers, but I believe the paramedic resource was a 1.26%, whereas the superintendent, I thought originally you were asking about that, it was a 0.31, I believe, if I have that correct, so. Alex will just clarify that.
We'll give Alex a moment.
While he's doing that, my point is that I want the budget to be done as a recorded vote, not just as one large.
Yeah, understood.
Okay, just from my read, we are at 5.48. When we left with our draft, we were at 6.07. So it's been reduced. And typically around the area, anything coming under 6 is probably good management, given the way the costs have gone up. So I think regardless, the work that we did, we're now at 5.48 is pretty good work.
Other comments? Richard, we're giving you some time.
Alex.
I'm having issues with the network here. Sorry about that. What 1.26 is definitely in the ballpark. It's 1.2 something. If you need the second decimal, I'll need to pull that up. But if 1.2-ish is good enough for these purposes.
It was 150,000 or 170,000 for that position.
They're talking the 12-hour shift.
Oh, that's 700 and some thousand.
If we could, let's give Alex a chance to answer that question. Are we allowed to have a?
You can recess.
We are going to recess for 5 minutes. ask first before we get to the next phase of this is to have the CEO update us on the current numbers to clarify any discussion or question that people had. We'll ask the treasurer.
No, I got. So just a few points of clarification before we open up the discussion again. Staff brought an original draft budget back in October that was coming in at 6.07. Through deliberations, budget deliberations, we ended up at a 5.79. I thought it was 7.8, but the treasurer's telling me 5.79. Regardless, once we got all the numbers in from the city of Kingston, our outside agencies, all the numbers got firmed up. We're bringing in this report a 5.48%. The ones that have started to being discussed here, the paramedic resource was a 1.26%. The superintendent position was a 0.31%. And if I have this right, I believe the economic development position was a 0.34%. So just for context and a reminder to council what those numbers were.
Thank you, Mr. Farrell. I believe Councillor Vanderwall is going to make an amendment.
Yes, I'd like to make an amendment that the economic development position, when implemented, I'm not talking about the contribution that we have to make and all that there, be a two-year contract to see the impact that it has. And obviously Richard's workload should be changing on the trail. So I would like to see a 2-year contract on the economic development position. Yes, oh, absolutely. And if it's working and it is doing everything it said it does, then it should be automatic too.
Can you go for 3?
Perhaps what we'll do is we'll have the clerk read the proposed amendment and then we can have a discussion on it.
Sorry, we just need a seconder first. So the way I took that is that the community development officer position, when implemented, be a 2-year contract to be able to see the impact and to be reviewed at the end of the 2 years.
Is that your amendment?
I think that's good enough. I mean, Jerry's saying 3, but it doesn't start anyway till.
I think 2 years is insufficient time, and that I think 5 years would be a better time frame that to actually see the real impact of it. Anything else can be a discounted as an aberration, whether it's good or bad. But over the course of 5 years, you actually see the trend. And if the trend is that it has not been helpful, it would be very telling. And certainly you always have the option of termination, that if there's poor performance during that time frame as well. But I think that anybody doing the job should have a fair shot at showing that the trend is going up. And I don't think 2 years is sufficient.
So Councillor, are you proposing an amendment to the?
I'm just making the discussion that to see if anyone else is of the like mind. I appreciate the 3 years that Councillor Lichty or Warden Lichty mentioned, and that I honestly think 5 years would be a fair time frame.
So any other comments on the amendment?
Just to say that I think when we hired an economic development person on a contract, which turned out to be Allison, and she had a huge impact in 2 years.
Do we have other comments? Warden Lichty?
North Frontenac hired a contract position contract person for this position over 3 years, and we had results, but the cost was just too much for us to maintain versus what we were getting for results. So we made the decision last year to not renew that contract. But I do think that 3 years would give you enough. I think 2 is a little bit short because it takes 6 to 12 months just to get into the job.
So
for argument's sake, then, if you want me to amend that motion to 3,
That's your call.
the other counselor said, sure.
So noted the amendment is modified to 3 years. Okay. And I believe the treasurer had a comment?
Yeah, I was just gonna comment. So the motion on the floor just to adopt the budget, the 2025 budget is just the reserve transfer. So whether it's a 2-year contract, 3-year contract, 5-year contract, full-time, that doesn't change for 25. So in terms of just approving the budget, the reserve transfer stay the same. If that's something maybe you bring forward in 26 in terms of the length of the contract, I think you'd be within your rights to defer that because you're only asking for that reserve transfer in 25.
But I just want to make clear that reserve transfer is to a full-time position. And that's what I'm trying to avoid having the language for. Because that's the proposal that was given to council was we contribute now and add this full-time position. So if you want to change that language to say whether it's 3 years, 2 years, whatever, my language is, I'm not saying not contribute, but I would like to try a 3-year contract. So I just don't want it to muddy the water and then it comes and says, oh no, the way the language read was we were going to add that position.
So I believe we had enough discussion. Oh, sorry,
I just have a question, and that is, does this motion tie the next council?
So does every motion.
I guess, Kevin, would you be able to answer that?
Yeah, I believe it does. But to Councillor Vanderwall's point, every decision that this council make could impact a future council.
Councillor Greenwood Spears?
Just this past 10 days ago on that, I was at a binational tourism conference held in Kingston. And the little town of Cape Vincent, New York, which is just south shore of Wolf Island, has gotten over $7 million in economic development from their different levels of government because they made the decision to hire somebody into economic development whose sole job at the start was to get the proposals out there to secure the funds and move forward on it. And out of that, they end up with a deep water port for tourism, for the tour boats to come to, something Kingston hasn't even got, let alone the economic development all the way along their waterfront. This will be game changing for their little town. And they took the step of hiring somebody on their own first, and then the monies came through. So that's economic development in my view that can be very substantive. And I really think that we need to move forward on it. And it's more than just the KMP trail.
I believe I'm going to ask the clerk to read the amendment and then we'll vote on it.
For sure. So be it resolved that the Community Development Officer position, when implemented, be a 3-year contract to allow council to see the impact to be reviewed at the end of the 3 years.
Do we need a seconder for that amendment?
Oh, sorry, that was moved by Councillor Vanderwall and seconded by Councillor Leonard.
Okay. All those in favor? Passed. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with the clerk's assistance here, we have,
Are there any other revisions that members of council would like to see to the budget?
so seeing no other revisions or amendments, we'll now move to a vote.
So we are now voting on the draft budget revisions as amended. And is that what you want the recorded vote on or the actual bylaw?
Now we're voting on the amendments to, and later on, it comes up that we're actually vote on the.
So you want the bylaw recorded vote?
Sorry, what Alex said is that 0.43 for that position is in this budget. Right? Okay.
We're putting the money away till the person's hired.
0.34, just to, yep.
What are we voting on?
So right now, you're just voting on the staff report that revised the budget numbers based on the committee of the whole meetings this past October. as amended to put language in there that the community development officer position is just a 3-year contract.
Okay, and the request is for recorded vote.
So this is where you want the recorded vote. I thought you were saying at the, okay. So recorded vote. Counselor Fowler, how do you vote?
In favor?
Counselor Gowdy?
In favor.
Counselor Greenwood Spears?
In favor?
Counselor Leonard?
In favor.
Warden Lichty?
In favor.
Deputy Warden Saunders?
In favor?
Counselor Smith? Counselor Vanderwall?
I have to be different. Yes.
So the motion's carried on a vote of 8-0.
Well, that was quite clear. Does that conclude? Oh, sorry. Yep. So the next item on the agenda is information reports from the Chief Administrative Officer.
So it really is just if any members of council have questions about that report.
Any questions on those reports provided? So seeing no questions, those information reports are received. Next item, reports from the Advisory Committee of County Council. There are none. And we will now return to council.
Moved by Councillor Leonard, seconded by Councillor Fowler, that council revert from committee of the whole council to council.
I just so anxious to get out of the chair. All, all those in favor? Thank you.
You survived fine.
Yeah, we don't know why Deputy Warden does it there.
We're back.
So moved by Deputy Warden Saunders and seconded by Councillor Leonard that the report of the Committee of the Whole Council be adopted and that the necessary actions or bylaws be enacted.
Any comments? In favor? Carried. Notices or motions, notice of which has been given.
So this is moved by Councillor Smith and seconded by Councillor Vanderwall, and through you, Warden Lichty, I will just move to the resolve clause that the County of Frontenac join the Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus, the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities in calling on the federal and Ontario governments to immediately and sustainably partner with municipal governments by investing in both the new and ongoing maintenance and repairs of municipal infrastructure in Eastern Ontario's small rural municipalities, and further that the federal and Ontario governments immediately review data and work together to implement solutions based on the EOWC's municipal infrastructure policy paper in partnership with small rural municipalities, and further that this resolution be forwarded to, and the list is in front of council who it will be forwarded to.
Are there any comments?
Can we
Councillor
add-
Greenwood Spears.
I'm wondering that since Roma's coming up, do we have a delegation for infrastructure? Do we have any projects that we're currently asking for infrastructure money specifically to the county?
Councillor Smith or CAO.
We don't currently have any delegations going to Roma, but we're having those conversations.
Made any applications for any projects in that sense? We're just saying that it's causing a financial hardship for us to do this. Are we asking right now?
EOWC will be having a delegation request.
Not specifically from the county and not to any specific projects. Again, to echo Councillor Smith's point, I have to get used to that too. Councillor Smith's point, the EOWC, a lot of this is around advocacy work that is done as part of the EOWC for all 13 counties across Eastern Ontario. So there's a number of resolutions that are coming from a number of municipalities in support of this. So we're doing our part to support that advocacy work that the EOWC is doing.
Counselor Vanderwall.
I didn't read all the details. Did they throw police in there? Is it in there? I know
There-
that we've had the downloading roads, all
So
those
this is specific to the infrastructure and the Mind the Gap work that the EOWC has undertaken. There's separate advocacy happening around the OPP.
Any further comments? In favor? Carried. Does any counselor, any member of counselor wish to give notice that they're bringing forward a motion next meeting? Seeing none, communications. Does anyone wish to table? Counselor Greenwood Spears.
Okay, that was, Counselor Vanderwall's point was AL is an example of the resolution regarding the OPP sustainable funding. AJ is another one for sustainable funding. And I think we should have a similar resolution for sustainable funding for the OPP. In other words, the province has downloaded virtually all the cost of the OPP. It's prohibitive to many of the rural municipalities, and a lot of municipalities are already sending that back to the province saying you need to upload it back. So I think we should be in support of that.
Any other comments on this, Counselor Smith?
The only other comment I'd make on that is it's a lower tier bill, not a county bill, but the county can certainly support the lower tier.
We have as a township. Sorry, people watching you from all sides. Township in North Frontenac, as others, I believe, if we've talked to our local MPP and said, we need some explanation. There is some significance. We understand that the OPP did cancel their information webinar on this item, and we're looking to see what result, if any, is going to come back to us.
I think they didn't have the answer. That's why they canceled.
I think you're probably right.
The Township of Frontenac Islands did pass a motion that supporting these other townships, and that's so.
We have written a letter, but we have, and I've written it, but we haven't sent it off yet because we're waiting to see what the province does come back with. So, of course you are.
So I will speak some of the advocacy work that's being done by the EOWC. So on average, the increased cost that we're seeing is 21% to municipalities across our region for OPP in 2025. This increase represents a very significant portion of municipalities' overall budget and impacts levy increases, which you are all seeing. The EOWC has sent a letter to the Solicitor General and Minister of Finance to ask for support around this. They are also looking for further transparency around how municipalities are billed by the OPP. Municipalities are committed to supporting safe communities, but need financial predictability. So this is some of the advocacy work being done on behalf of the EOWC for all of our municipalities.
Any other comments?
Sorry, so this portion that we're on is giving notice of motion by members of council. So I would ask, is a member of council bringing forward a motion? I'm just saying we should support it, but it's not staff that put the motions on the floor. It has to be a member of council, so.
Okay. Yeah, it's notice. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll give notice of motion that I'll be bringing forward that we have support for the townships that are being faced, some of them 30% or more increase in the OPP costs.
Thank you, Counselor. Are there any others? Counselor Fowler?
Or do you want a seconder on the motion?
No, don't need a second. I didn't think so.
So just for clarification, did you want a recorded vote on the budget? Okay. So it's going to be just a little bit messy here. So moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Councillor Gowdy, that bylaws A through D, F, and I that have been circulated to all members of County Council, and that bylaws A through D, F, and I be read a first and second time.
Any comments? In favor? Carried.
And a separate, so for third reading for those bylaws, that bylaws A through D, F, and I be read a third time, signed, and finally sealed.
Comments?
So within that motion, bylaw G, which is the motorized off-road, has been pulled, and bylaw H, the agreement with the ATV club, has been pulled, and bylaw E has been pulled. It will be voted on separately.
Okay, in favor? Sorry. Carried. I get used to this eventually.
Okay, so now for bylaw E, which is the bylaw, the budget bylaw, moved by Councillor Greenwood Spears, seconded by Councillor Gowdy, that bylaw E be read a first and second time and on a recorded vote. Councillor Fowler, how do you vote? Councillor Gowdy? Councillor Greenwood Spears?
Oppose.
Councillor Leonard?
Favor.
Warden Lichty?
In favor?
Deputy Warden Saunders? Councillor Smith? Councillor Vanderwall?
Yes.
So that first and second reading is carried on a vote of 8-1. No, Councillor Vanderwall has 2 votes in council. So for third reading, that bylaw E be read a third time, signed, sealed, and finally passed. Do you want a recorded vote on that one? This is.
Madam Clerk, just for my own personal, did we have to do recording on first and second? Because it's the third one that only counts, isn't it? I'm just asking. I don't care. I'm just asking.
So we do a recorded vote when one is requested for anything. Okay. So
Councillor
for
Smith,
third
please.
reading, Councillor Fowler, how do you vote? Councillor Gowdy?
In favor?
Councillor Greenwood Spears?
Opposed.
Councillor Leonard?
In favor.
Warden Lichty?
In favor?
Deputy Warden Saunders?
Yes.
Councillor Smith? Yes. Councillor Vanderwall?
Yes.
And that is carried on a motion of, or on a vote of 8-1.
Next one is this one, right?
Yes.
Okay, well, so I would like to say thank you for the confidence expressed in myself to become the warden. And on behalf of Bill, who's already has said something to you about how grateful he is. We're here to serve you, to help further the county of Frontenac along. And both of us, I know, have talked, we're looking forward to making this a great year. So thank you, one and all. So adjournment.
Moved by Councillor Fowler, seconded by Councillor Leonard, that the meeting hereby adjourn at 11:22 a.m.
In favor? Carried. See everyone tomorrow night.